3 brilliant kingside attacks where we'll see piece sacrifices, rook lifts, and more brilliant moves. Now here we have a great attacking game by Spassky playing as white in this King's Indian. He's got a very simple plan of expanding on the king's side with g4, h4, h5, supported by knight g3. Then once the h-file is open, he can go bishop h6, get rid of this dark squared defender, and then bring the queen into the attack. That's the long-term plan. Black will want to do the same on the opposite ring with c6, b5. Then once those two files are open, he can start to slowly develop, bring his rook and queen into the game. Black's already in quite a bad position here because his attack is much slower and white's king is very safe. So that's what Spassky did. He went g4, black went b5. Now white went knight g3 here. White is happy for black to take this pawn. White does not want to take on b5 because a takes would open this a file. b4 is fine because we can just play knight a4, keep the queen side blocked. So black played b takes c4. It's impossible for black to defend this pawn, so white doesn't need to recapture immediately. Instead, he just goes h4. Now here black played f6, probably with ideas of keeping the king side blocked. Now if white goes g5, black can consider moves like f5. If white goes h5, he can go g5, keep the king side blocked. But the problem with this is, after white played h5, if black goes g5, we can go knight f5, and black's bishop is completely locked in. White's threatening h6 even. Though the king side is blocked, white can transfer his attention to the queen side by playing bishop c4, bring his king to safety, bring the rooks to the c file, and he'll be dominating in this queen side. So black instead opted for an active defence with queen e7. White took on g6 and went queen h2, very standard. Then black went king f7 just to escape from this queen h7 check. It's worth saying that this is a very double-edged move because after king f7, rook h8 will trap the queen if white's not careful. But black got out of the way. Now white played this amazing sacrifice, knight f5. The idea here is that if black takes, queen h5 check will put the king into a box. Now after this continuation, takes, queen h5 check, king g8 and taking, white's down a piece, but black's king cannot escape over to the queen side. Ultimately white will bring his forces into the attack with bishop e2, rook g1. Of course if black just moves his queen to f7, we can retreat our queen, king still can't escape. And ultimately it'll be both white's rooks and queen against just this queen and bishop, so white will achieve checkmate. So black tried to escape another way with rook f7, get the king to f8, but white's too fast with bishop e2. Black goes knight c5. He could have tried king f8, but rook g1 is crushing. This is actually threatening queen h8 check, because after bishop takes, rook takes his mate. So you can see how hard it is for black to defend. Black goes knight c5, we go rook g1, queen d7 for argument's sake, but then queen h8 is checkmate, so a quick win by Spassky with this kingside attack. Here we have a brilliant attacking game of Mikhail Tal's, where he uses a series of multi-purpose attacking and defending moves to take over the kingside. So in this position, black's doing okay. He's got the better pawn structure, he's threatening bishop takes c4, he's also got the idea of rook d8, queen d3 to trade off queens and have the better endgame. Meanwhile, white's bishop is passive, it's looking at its own pawn, his rooks have got no clear way into the game. So white drops his knight back to d2 to make space for this rook lift. Now this is brilliant because now black goes bishop c2, trying to go for a skewer, but white prevents it with rook f3, defending and attacking simultaneously. So black goes rook c8, tries to activate the rooks. Problem is, now this queen d3 is no longer available, so he can't force the endgame. So these rook moves are not very useful. White continues, rook h3. His long-term plan is to build up with knight to f3, g5, and then hit this pawn. He can also get the bishop to d5 to cut off the king's escape. Meanwhile, now that this pin is active, this pawn is weak, so black will have to tie down his queen and knight to defend it. So black activates his rooks, white goes bishop d5, exploiting the fact that if knight takes d5, we just take on g6 and win a pawn. So black goes queen e8 to free up this knight. We go queen g2. Ultimately, white would like to get both the rooks to the g file. So he's going to want to play something like king h1, rook g1. He might bring the other rook to g3. Meanwhile, white wants to delay moving this knight as long as possible because then black will be able to take on c4. Meanwhile, black is going to try and open these files as quickly as possible. His counterplay is on the queen side, so one good manoeuvre for him is bishop a4 back to c6 and try and win a pawn by attacking this bishop. So black goes bishop a4, we go knight df3, giving up this pawn on c4. White goes bishop e6, gaining time on the rook, forcing bishop d7. There's an exchange, and we go knight g5 with the latent threat of rook takes h7. So rook c d8. Again, this looks scary, but there are no real targets along this file. All these key squares are covered with the exception of d1, but white can always just protect this rook, and black's rooks are not getting in and generating threats. So white goes queen e2 to prevent rook d1. Black moves his rook back to c8. He's moving without a plan. He's just moving his rooks back and forth, giving white time to build up. Now white played an odd move here. He played king f2. Now this does not look very positional. King will be a little bit vulnerable here. It would have been better to play king h1 with the idea of bringing the rooks to the g file, because I guess Tal must have been worried about the king being on h1 and then his queen coming to the diagonal, but white's got so many knights that can cover it. So white goes king f2, black goes rook dc7, brings his rooks to the g file. Black plays h6, which is questionable because you don't want to move the pawns in front of your king when you've got 4 pieces on the attack. So white brings his knight to an even better square. Rook c6. Now white brings his knight to the outpost, rook c5, and white starts to pile up on the pawn here. Black's kingside pawn structure is too weak. So black goes king h7, just defending this pawn, but it allows a very nice sequence of trades. So white just takes on g6 3 times, which allows queen d3. Now there's no way to defend the f5 square. If black tries to defend this way, white can go knight to e6. Material is equal, but black is completely lost. He tried to go knight d6, and white just took. Black resigned this game. So you can see how fast this attack took over, and Tal really punished the few aimless rook moves that black made in this game. Now here we have another attacking game of, you guessed it, Mikhail Tal. So he's already achieved quite a dominant position here. This is a King's Indian. He's taken over the centre. His king is safe, and black is well behind. Normally he would want to play moves like b5, supported by rook b8, but it's quite slow here. He could consider playing g5 to block up the king side, but it would have to be supported by f6 first. f6 could always be countered by g5 as a sacrifice. Meanwhile, white is going to develop in the centre with moves like bishop g2, rook to f1. If needs be, he can always play king b1 and even a1 if black's attack is too much. So let's see what happens. So white played the central breakthrough e5. It's attacked 3 times, it's defended 3 times, so it's not even a sacrifice. So d takes e5, knight takes. Now here black develops with bishop d7. Now this is supporting b5. I would say here, if you're in such a bad position, just muddy the waters with the immediate b5. Like, it can't hurt because you're opening up white's king, you're only losing a pawn, and as you can see it's +3 anyway. But anyway, he played bishop d7, cautious move. Now white, now that this e-pawn's not in the way, he's got this more active square for his bishop, d3, still followed up by rook f1. King b1 is generally a good move in these positions, just to get the king into safety. Bishop d3, bishop f6. Black is planning to trade off the dark square bishops when white's attack will lose its venom. He could also have considered just playing b5 again, and also just trying to block up this queen side, the king side. So white went rook hf1, black went back to f8 just to cover this pawn. Again, it looks ugly. White played knight e4, all the pieces moving forwards, so black had to, again, now that g5 is covered, he has to go back with his tail between his legs to g7. Now white's got a crushing position. He can go d6, not immediately because that would allow knight e6, but after preparation such as taking, maybe the knight can go somewhere else and then c5, d6 can happen. I'd also be looking at moving this knight to c5 and then even sacrificing on g6 because the rooks and queen are ready to flow into the game. Meanwhile, black can try to stabilise with b5. He could play just developing moves to try and counter white's pieces. So knight takes c5, bishop back to c8 to defend the pawn. King b1. I really like this move because it's prophylactic. It shows patience, which is very good virtue when you're trying to combat a position. If you rush forward too fast, you can create holes and weaknesses that your opponent can exploit. So king b1, knight e8, and white goes bishop h6. Good to get rid of this dark square bishop. Bishop takes, queen takes, and now queen g5. Good move, trying to exchange off queens, and without queens on the board, black's got more chance of dragging the game out into an endgame, which actually wouldn't be so bad because plus 6, I know, but he can go knight to d6. This knight can't be dislodged from d6. He can gain a tempo, maybe put his bishop on b7 and his rook on c8. If white starts getting driven back, black's position can stabilise. So instead of allowing this, white played a brilliant move. Knight takes f7, overloading this rook, because if rook takes, we have taking here, and then if black takes the queen, knight takes check, king g7, and now even without queens this is lethal because the rook is coming to the attack. The king has to go back to h8, and rook f8 will be mate. So, brilliant attack where white didn't even need to sacrifice anything until the very last minute when he swept through the king side and delivered checkmate.